Hello and welcome to a very special episode of First Geek 411. I'm your host, Cameron Franklin, and with me, as always, from the Great White North, Shanine, how are you?
Doing good. I should have been more prepared. I was like, there's got to be a good Taylor Swift lyric to come in hot with.
Yeah.
I got
And why
nothing.
are we wanting Taylor Swift lyrics? That's because tonight we are ranking every, I guess, studio album that Taylor Swift has released, if we want to get technical. The 13, including the Taylor's versions. Um, we're going to be breaking them down, chatting through our favorite songs, all of that kind of stuff. Um, how hyped are you?
So hyped.
Um, this is something that you brought up a couple months ago about wanting us to do, and I have been so excited for it. Of course, Speak Now Taylor's version just dropped, and we kind of wanted to line it up with this. Shout out to whoever it was on TikTok or whatever, Instagram Reels, whatever, that had posted a thing about ranking every single song. And they were like, I'm going to do that and I'll put it out for everybody. And then we were like, oh, we'll wait and we'll make one. And I made one like that night so that we could start doing this. Oh man, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get into the great Taylor Swift, as always, we are First Geek 411. You can find us on our social media. You can join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek41, yeah, at gmail.com. You can watch live on Twitch Monday nights at 6:45 Mountain Time and find our videos over on YouTube where you can like, comment, and subscribe. And then, of course, you can find us at our Redbubble store. Shanine, before we get into it, you had brought us some questions. You want to kick us off with those?
Yes. And before I say that, I will say it was cathartic_library on
Okay.
Instagram that I stole this idea from. But I'm so excited. All right. What is your Taylor Swift history? What is your first song, your first album, the first time you considered yourself a fan?
So I've definitely kind of come in and out. So when Taylor first started making music, I was very into country music. So like I came in on that scene where like she was one of the big up and coming artists. I remember there being talks about like if she was going to be a one hit wonder or if she could like land a second album. And I remember like when Fearless came out and it was like a good album, how like excited like the country music scene was going to be. And then of course she was only like ever like barely country, kind of IMO after like debut, but like then from there like kind of in and out for specific albums. I've talked before about how like I kind of fell out for Red. Um, and then like 1989 is like really where I would consider myself to be like a Swifty in terms of like my current music tastes. Like that's really like the one I connect with the most in terms of like release era. And so
For me, I like distinctly remember my friend in grade 7. I think it was 7. With like her Discman and headphones like out during recess in the schoolyard being like, you have to listen to this song. And it was Teardrops on My Guitar. And I thought it was a great song, but that was in my I'm too cool for country phase. So I did not get into Taylor Swift at that point. Um, I then definitely went through a phase with Love Story where that was like the only song I listened to for weeks. Um, I think the first album I really listened to and the first time that I started to consider myself a fan was Red. Um, I don't know. I think before we did these rankings, I would have said my favorite album was 1989, but now the numbers have me
Who
confused and
knows?
conflicted.
We'll have
So,
to wait and see how it all shakes out. And so, uh, and then another thing you had put in here was concerts.
eh,
So, I was able to go to the Eras tour with a group of friends when it came through Dallas. It was super exciting. It was a 3-hour epic. Like I've talked about this on like a regular episode of First Geek. Like I cannot believe that the show is 3 hours. I cannot believe how well it like maintains like momentum through all of that. I was, I think, looking into going to Reputation, but that ended up not happening. Um, Probably for money. Um, but I had like been looking into going to that one. So like, Eras Tour was my first T Swift concert.
yeah, I never considered myself big enough of a fan to go to a concert until now. And now I'm just like, Taylor, please.
Yeah.
I have heard that there are rumors that the Canadian leg is going to be 2 dates in Vancouver.
Oh,
And that's going to be the whole Canadian leg. And I'm like, no, Taylor, you cannot do this to us, please.
yeah,
So I'm hoping I get the opportunity to go to Eras.
yeah.
But
I hope so. People that are in chat, as Queen Skywalker has just posted, let us know when you got into Taylor Swift. Let us know what your favorite songs are, things like that. We'll be chatting through it throughout the episode. And if we miss it, we'll try to get back to it in post show chat. But Deanna does say, started liking her around Speak Now and then moved, and then more so with Red. Fell off a bit until she started the re records. Now I'm nuts. Then Deanna says, I hated her when Teardrops came out. Because they kept playing it over and over again in the movie theater. At the movie theater I worked at, and I hated it. I really feel like that's like the struggle with so much music, almost like more so than other media. Of like, if a movie is playing over and over again, like on TV, you just change the channel. But like if you're in a location and they're just playing the same like 10 songs over and over again, you're just stuck with it. Like the best songs become horrible if it's all that you listen to for an 8-hour shift of work. Uh, so, in traditional First Geek fashion, we came up with the idea for this and then proceeded to not talk about consistency between how we did things, which makes me really excited to find out how you went and did your rankings. So, in general, the rankings that we're going off of, we're doing a 10-point ranking where 1 is horrible, 2 is awful, 3 is bad, 4 is mediocre, 5 is average slash fine, 6 is enjoyable, 7 is good, 8 is very good, 9 is classic, 10 is a masterpiece. And then I should also say these are our rankings. You are more than welcome to disagree. You do not have to be, agree with us. If we put your favorite album at the bottom, it does not mean it's a bad album. But yeah, so we went through every song and ranked it, and then took the average of that to get our album ranking. And then that is how we were able to determine it. So I want to know, what was your process? Like, how did you go about this?
all right, I will start by saying my process was completely subjective, and sometimes I would even disagree with myself. I'd like look back on the songs that I had ranked a few days earlier and was like,
Mhm.
"What? I ranked it that?" So, it's completely subjective. It even changes for myself
Yep.
from day to day. So, you know, um I had not a ton of criteria, but if I was singing along at any point, that was automatic 6 minimum. Um, 7 to 10 were songs that I would purposefully listen to and add to a playlist of my own, and anything below a 6 was a skip, a possible skip or an every time skip.
Yep.
And then the
So
highest marks went to anything that I would scream sing to at any point.
I've really enjoyed your tweets about Taylor Swift scream singing. Um, so overall, we're pretty similar there. Um, I kind of like did like mini groupings where like a 9 and 10 are songs that I love. 6, 7, and 8 are songs that I enjoy. 4 and 5 are songs that like I wouldn't be upset if they were playing, but I would never seek them out. And then 3 and below are songs that I absolutely hated. That being said, spoilers, nothing got below a 4. But like, because it turns out like even at her worst, Taylor Swift is still a really good artist. So like, there's like something to appreciate in every song. Um, and okay, and so then methodology. So I went through and I listened in release order every single song. Um, oh, and I should also say for our rankings, we are excluding songs that were only on like the deluxe version of the album. So, using Midnights as the example, the 3 a.m. edition, those songs are not included in our rankings. It,
Makes me sad.
yeah, it makes me sad too. But like, especially because like we'll talk about it when we get there. One of my like I think one of my favorite T Swift songs is in the 3 a.m. edition.
Oh, my
Um,
absolute favorite T
and
Swift song is in the 3 a.m. edition.
yeah, so yeah, so I went through everything, and I actually went and ranked even the ones that we were not including. I went and ranked those as well. After we finish, I'm going to try to post some of the stats and some of the breakdowns because I haven't had time to look for it, but I was like prepping some stuff for today. And on one album in specific, I think we have the inverse rankings for like every song. And I'm just like really interested to go and look at all of that. So
There was some I was looking, I was like, how, what?
yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. Um, and okay, and then how did you handle the Taylor's versions? So we used like a Google sheet for this. So for me, when I got to the Taylor's versions, I started hiding everything else. Like I did not want the other versions because like I did mine like weeks apart. Um, and so like I did not want my ranking of the original version to influence the Taylor's version at all. So like, how did you do that?
I Okay, so yeah, I started with like her original albums and listened to mostly in release order, except I saved Midnights for very last, just because that's how I did it.
Yep.
Um, as for Taylor's versions, I kind of started like, oh, I'll just like listen through and like see if I agree. And then I'd like kind of rank it, and then I'd look at my ranking of the original, and if they were like wildly different, I'd either like keep both or I'd like average it out or like shift my rankings on like both albums
Mm-hmm.
dependent on like what the numbers were. Unless there was a song that sounded like specifically very different
Yep.
from each other. Like the one that stands out would be Girl at Home. Sounds very different on like the original compared to the Taylor's version. So those ones got like their own ranking without being influenced by each other. Everything else I kind of
Yep.
yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah. And so, I'll say for me, once I finished an album, that album's rankings were locked in. So like I never went back and adjusted the scores for an album I'd finished listening to. So like as I would go, I might like move songs around in their rankings, but I locked it in once I finished listening to it. And so like what's a like 10 on one album might not be a 10 on another one. Just kind of for context there. But okay, I think we've gotten that. We've talked about our criteria. We've talked about our background. Let's get into our actual rankings. And so kicking us off with a combined average of, I guess I should also say, I took our album rankings, our album averages, averaged those two together, and then that's how we got our score for the album, our official First Geek ranking. So when you think Taylor Swift, you might think of Debut, which is our first lowest ranking album. I guess it sounds weird to like, how do you like to say that? But like, is our lowest ranking album. So we're going to try to not talk through like every song on every album, because then we would be here for the whole time. We've already referenced Teardrops on My Guitar. But what's your favorite song on this album? What's something that like surprised you going back and listening to and stuff like that?
I mean, it's kind of wild. There's so many like classic Taylor songs, and then there's some I'm like, I could not tell you a single line. I could not hum the tune. It's definitely my least listened to album for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think my lowest scores belong to this album.
Yeah. I'll say for me, the only 4 I gave out is on this album. Every other song at least scored a 5. At least for the ones that are on the main albums. I don't remember if one of the other ones scored that low. But for me, like Teardrops on My Guitar and Our Song are really like the 2 that stand out. And I guess Picture to Burn. But like the middle of this album, I was just kind of like, here's like 5 songs that are like fine at best. And then you get like, I get like Should Have Said No and Our Song like catching up at the end. But like this album was a bit rough to get through, which says something because it was like the first one. But maybe that's also me just not being into country anymore. So like here we are.
Yeah.
Next, sorry, I'm like, prepping this made me really want a third monitor, which like, you know, is kind of how I live my life anyway. But okay, next, coming in with a combined average of 6.85, we have Fearless, Taylor's version. This shocked me. And I was really surprised to see. We'll get to our actual like rankings, and I'll show that at the end. I was shocked that both of us ended up with Fearless Taylor's version below Fearless.
Yeah. I think, yeah, out of the vault songs, I think there are some that I like really, really like, and some that I really, really don't. Not that I like don't like them, but they're just skips for me. So
yeah, and like I'll say like on my end, so something that was interesting, since we weren't including deluxe versions of songs, like the normal albums only had a certain number, and it's relatively few. But like once you get to the Taylor's versions, there's just so much in those that like it's really easy for like kind of a slump. And I will say we'll get into the other Taylor's versions later on, but like these from the vault songs I think are overall some of my least favorite of her from the vault songs. Like none of them like really lifted the album above the average. Like there are some, like I like Jump Then Fall, and then like I have a couple like 7.5s, but like in general there wasn't really anything on this album that I felt was that much better than OG Fearless. Like
yeah.
We can talk more about some of the specific songs once we get to the original one. Okay, coming up next. Deanna says, I really like Fearless, Superstar, and You Belong With Me on that one. Our next album, we're going country to folk. Because this next one is an open shut case with Evermore. Um, what do you think of Evermore?
Again, is one of those albums that has a very large range of songs for what I like. It's like some of them are very meh, and there's a couple that I really, really like. But I think I always clump Folklore and Evermore together
Mm-hmm.
just as being like, I don't know, they're like sister albums or something. But I,
Yeah.
obviously, Evermore is not as enjoyable for me.
Uh, yeah. This is another one where a lot of the songs on this album I like. But there's not really any songs on this album that I love. Um,
Yeah.
to me, like, or for me, my top rated were No Body, No Crime and Long Story Short and Closure. Those are the three that I had as eights. Um, also, shout out to the Revenge songs. Like listening through all of them in succession. Like every album has like at least one Revenge song, and those are some of my favorite ones on every album. So, um, I also think this album was a great illustration to me of how bad I am at remembering song names. Like there was a handful of songs on this one that I was like, I've never heard this before in my life. And then it would start going like, oh no, I really like this one. I definitely enjoy this song quite a bit. I just did not know that this was the name. Um, but yeah, this is one I had that on a handful of the albums, but this one definitely had that like the most. Um,
Yeah, a bit with me too, actually. I'm usually pretty good with song titles. And yeah, some of these I was like, what is this? And then it would start playing, and I'm like, oh, this one. Yeah. My favorite from this one is Willow. And then my other high ones were Champagne Problems, Tolerate It, and Evermore. Good old Bon Iver.
um, Emma comes in chat and says the only T Swift I ever really liked was her country era. Surprisingly, that's an interesting take. Uh, and then Deanna makes a call out. If you could only keep three albums, hers would be Red, Speak Now, and Midnight's. I want us to come back to that at the end because I'm curious to like what that would be for us. So let's take that. We're going to kind of have a breakdown or a breakout period at the end, and so I want us to come back to that because I did not think of that, but that'd be like a great thing for the show notes. So, okay. Next up, um, don't blame me. This album made us crazy with Reputation, coming in with an average of 7 exactly between the two of us. This was the only album we actually had the exact same ranking on, which I think is very interesting. We'll talk more about that once we get to like our individual breakouts. But this is also the I remember like this album coming out while I was in Connecticut around the time that like How I Met Your Mother was ending, and so the joke that I always make is that this is Robin Sparkles becoming Robin Daggers. As we get like this transition from 1989 to Reputation. But for Reputation, what are some of your favorite songs?
This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things is my favorite, hands down, from this album. It's so peppy and so bitter at the same time, and I love that.
I'll say for me, this is the album I referenced earlier where Shanine and I have almost like opposite rankings. So I really like King of My Heart and Dancing with Our Hands Tied. And I was shocked that you do not. um, and so that was something that like again like I was like I was like just like looking through trying trying to get like a lyric from every album that was from a song that we both rated highly, and I was just like, excuse me.
Nothing on this one.
Yeah.
That is funny.
And then also, of course, shout out to Look What You Made Me Do, which again, I rank, that's like my highest ranked one on this album, and it is not for you. So like, again, I just think it's super interesting that like, despite how much we disagreed on like the individual song basis, this is the one album that actually came out to the same score.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny.
Okay. Next up, we're going to be listening to the music she kind of likes with Original Fearless. So we kind of already talked about this, like, I'll say like in a vacuum. And this one was ranked 7.04. And so, but yeah, we already talked about this a little bit in the context of the Taylor's version. What'd you think of OG Fearless?
I mean, a lot of classics again. Gotta love Love Story.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love You Belong With Me. And the way that I scream sing The Way I Loved You. It's a banger.
It's a banger. I'll say like the songs that I remembered from this album, I love so much. But there's a lot on this album that like maybe like hidden gem kind of things where like I don't know if I've ever heard 2/3 of this album. Like I feel like I don't hear people talk about them. I don't hear people like reference some of these, and like there's some really good songs on this one. And then like there's just some like, again, there's like the headliners that are like the ones that kind of carry this. But I was both surprised at how much I love parts of this, and then we're surprised at how much like, yeah, this just hasn't like necessarily carried on. I will also say I did not like this album as much as when I first like it was first coming out. I remember loving Fearless when it came out. But now it's like relatively towards the bottom. So okay. This album once revolved around Taylor Swift with Original Speak Now, coming in with a pretty big jump, up to 7.46. And so, what'd you think about OG Speak Now?
It's got a lot of good ones. And I think this is the album, as I was ranking them, that made me realize for younger Taylor Swift, I enjoy like her love songs more. Whereas like older Taylor Swift, I'm like the breakup songs. But like I love Enchanted. I just love it.
I was shocked that Ours is not on the actual album for this. Like that's one that like is a bonus track for this one. And that's like my favorite song on this album. And like I don't know if like, I mean, it was a single, I think at one, like it was released as a single at some point. So I think like it was on the radio, but like I was shocked that this was not on the actual album. And yeah, a lot of great songs on this one. Like Mine and Mean are like my two favorite songs on like the actual album. And again, I'm going to shout out Better Than Revenge, because like apparently that's like my vibe with Taylor Swift is like, but like, yeah. I wanted to like catalog like the specific themes throughout the songs, but that just became too much of like breakdown, like revenge songs versus love songs versus breakup songs versus like, so I'm sure some Swifties done that out there. Um, Next up, um, the the devil rolls the dice, and the angels roll their eyes with Lover. Um, Coming in with a 7.56. Um, I'm gonna be honest. I think I'd only listened to this album once before, like in its entirety. Like I don't really know why. I really like a lot of the songs on this album, but like I just feel like I had never like, and again, maybe it's like me not remembering song names or whatever, but like there's a lot on this that I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard these songs before. I definitely don't recognize titles. Like there's a lot that I really enjoy. I mean, shout out to Cruel Summer, which is like the number one trending Taylor Swift song right now. Paper Rings, I really liked. Um, and then The Man and You Need to Calm Down were my other ones, my other top ones. But what all did you like on Lover?
Yeah, there's actually a lot that I like on Lover, but I think like you, like when it came out, I listened to it like once or twice, aside from like Me,
Mm-hmm.
but that was just playing
Right, that was just
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I've started to listen to it more again recently, and I'm like, oh man, this like it's so good. Yeah, obviously, Cruel Summer, Cornelia Street, Death by a Thousand Cuts. I love London Boy. I just love it. It's so cute.
I really like that song as well. It was I put it as an 8, but like I mean it definitely like says something about this album that like I listed off like 5 or 6 songs and London Boy was not one of them and London Boy was an 8 for me. Um and so yeah. I like again, I don't know why I didn't listen to this much. I really like this album. Okay. Let's start the next great American dynasty with Folklore. And I got to say, everyone, I have been super paranoid about saying Folklore and Evermore wrong, like this whole time. Like, here we are, kind of to what Janine was saying at the beginning. These are very like similar albums, and I want to say, don't fact check me here, everyone, but I feel like these two albums were released closer together than any of the like the other like main albums. I could be wrong there, but like I feel like these came out really close to each other. Um, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. Like these really feel like one album, especially like with the number of songs that she's been putting out for like the re-records. Like I don't know if I could necessarily tell you one way or the other what was on Folklore and Evermore if I did not look at the track list.
Yeah, Folklore came out July 24th, 2020, and Evermore came out December 11th, 2020.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that they were
Yeah,
like
they
super
were
quick.
really close.
I would have been felt really bad if they were like a year and a half apart or something like that, and it was just COVID time. Sneaky in chat says this is 100% hands down his favorite album.
Nice.
And so for me, Last Great American Dynasty is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. It's definitely up there for me. I put it as a 9. I didn't quite break it into a 10, but like it's my highest rated one on this album, followed by Cardigan. And then I think, and Illicit Affairs again, because I love the like, we're getting that revenge style stuff. Um, and but other than those three, there was a lot of songs on here that I liked but didn't love. Um, a lot of sevens, a lot of high sixes, but like there was nothing else that was really breaking into that like 7.5 and above.
Yeah, I have 1 6, and everything else is a 7 or higher. I I love this style of music, and when she released an album of it, I was so excited. And there's just so many amazing songs on here. Illicit Affairs and Invisible String are just, I love them. Exile, once again, with Bonnie Vare. Love it. Um, I and the one Cardigan, My Tears Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
There, the lowest one that I just said was ranked in 9. So
Yeah.
I like a lot of these songs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say for me, I think where both Folklore and Evermore kind of suffer, using air quotes, is like I feel like this is in general the more folky side is music that I really like but I don't love. Um, and so a lot of this is songs that like, man, I would love to have this on in the background, but a lot of it is not songs that like I'm like hyped to go play or like go put on. And so, uh, which like kind of surprised me because I remember again really liking Folklore when it came out, but uh, I was kind of surprised at how it landed there for me. Um, and then next up, this could either break our heart or put it back together with Speak Now, Taylor's version. Um, and so the most recent release, and I did do want to reference, I love Electric Touch. Um, that's
Good.
it's probably I know you and I have been talking a lot of T Swift for obvious reasons the past couple weeks, but like that song is so good. Like I'm not really a like put a song on repeat person, but like I have listened to Electric Touch so many times. And then I think kind of going back to what we were talking about with OG Speak Now when we had it earlier. Um, I think there's a lot of like really good stuff on this album. And then I really feel like the From the Vaults add a lot to this. Like, um, for me, Electric Touch, When Emma Falls in Love, and I Can See You uh, are all three like amazing songs that are obviously not on the original album. And then this one also has ours added into it. Like that was, which was not counted in our, based on our own rules, but like was not included in our other ranking of Speak Now. And so, yeah, I thought this one was so good. I feel like,
Yeah.
sorry, before you go, because this might lead you into it, I also feel like this has one of the songs that you and I are like opposite ends of the spectrum on, and that is Dear John. Like, I feel we've talked about that before, but
Listen, I am here for the John Mayer hate. I will say if you start psychoanalyzing all of my favorite Taylor Swift songs, you will learn a lot about me. But yes, Electric Touch, I was also like, it would end and I'd be like, go back.
Yeah, well, we'll run it back one more time.
Do
One
it
more
again.
time.
And I Can See You and like the music video. I am loving everything that Taylor and Taylor are doing together right now. Like, so good. It's cute. It's so cute. And it's such a great song. And yeah, I don't know. The vault songs from this one they were great.
Yeah, definitely. Deanna says, OMG, Taylor L was a great reveal. Yes. Yes. Give that guy more sticks to spin. Like, he's just like living his best life, doing flips on stage and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah. I love this one. This is also an album that I could honestly see like staying in like my top of all time kind of thing. And so, okay. we knew this album was trouble when it walked in with Original Red. What'd you think of this one?
Oh man. I mean, I have always loved Red. I don't know if I was expecting it to rank so highly, but every song is in my classification of like a highly ranked song. We got nothing below a 7 in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, pretty similarly, I have like so many songs in here that I really enjoy. We have like for me, I Knew You Were Trouble, obviously. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. Holy Ground, Starlight. Like I really, and obviously in Red itself as a song, but like and 22. I feel like 22 is like the song that lives rent free in my head of like I'm doing the like I'll do that I don't know about you, but I'm feeling blank so much. To the point that like when Shanine tweeted it out as like her going live thing, I was like, can I do that for our post? Because that's like where my head was too. But like that's like one of the memes that like that I love. And then yeah, such a good song.
I love that we have um, Snow Patrol on this album. Like, yes, Taylor and Gary Lightbody sound so good together. Um, I will say, I Knew You Were Trouble is a 9.75. It is not a perfect 10 simply because the freaking goat video, and I can't get it out of my head still to this day, and it just brings
So
it down that one little
so
notch.
this is where you and I are opposites. That's what makes that song a 10 for me. I have made goat noises at Deanna in the car so much while listening to this song of like that's we'll reference this a little bit later on. I'll tease my shirt. People might already know what it is, but like I'll tease my shirt. I love the memification of Taylor's songs. And I honestly think Goat Video is one of my favorite like internet things. And I love that so much. I just introduced that to someone at work. They had never seen that before.
Oh man.
And we have been doing like we found like a Bluetooth boombox. And so on Fridays we've been playing music when no one is in meetings. And so of course anytime it's my turn to make a suggestion, it's always Taylor Swift. And that song came on and it took all of my self-control as a human being to not make goat noises. And so I just showed them the video instead. And so I love
I
that
mean,
so
is it
much.
hilarious? Yes. Is it the vibe that I'm going for when I'm rocking out to I Knew You Were Trouble? No.
um,
And this is also where my OG versus Taylor's version came into play a little bit. The original version of All Too Well is ranked a 9.5. Because I feel like you can, or I can anyways. Most of them I like can't immediately recognize a difference in it, but this one I'm like, oh, her voice sounds a lot different from the original to Taylor's version.
okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm not good at punchlines, but our next album is Red, Taylor's version. Um, I feel like, I mean, obviously Taylor has always been a big deal, like since debut, like, but I feel like this is really what like cemented a lot of like modern Taylor Swift stuff. Was like I feel like I did not see a lot of talk around the internet for like Speak Now Taylor's version, or sorry, for Fearless Taylor's version. But like once Red Taylor's version came out, I feel like that was when a lot of people really um, were going crazy. I was going to tell this story. Deanna puts it in chat. All Too Well 10-minute version was her most played song on Spotify in 2022. Was played 64 times. and just so glad that it was part of the tour. And then Deanna says it's also probably where her obsession started. She was casual before that. In 2022, Deanna listened to All Too Well 10-minute version more than I listened to music. And so that song, now granted, like if we're in the house, it's typically her phone that we're listening to music on, not mine, or like her Spotify account. But yeah, we listened to that song so much.
Impressive.
And so,
And justified.
yeah. So what'd you think about All Too Well, Taylor's version? Also,
yeah, I mean, let's just
Red Taylor's version.
basically.
There we go.
Basically,
But like,
All Too Well.
but basically All Too Well Taylor's version.
Let's be honest.
It's a Freudian slip. Like.
So here we have All Too Well is a 9.75, and All Too Well 10-minute version is the perfect 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a few 10s on this album. The Last Time with Gary Lightbody, Come Back, Be Here will always be one of my favorites. It is too sad. Better Man, again, too sad. And I Bet You Think About Me, a good classic Taylor Swift revenge song.
Yep. My highest ranked not All Too Well song was I Bet You Think About Me. And so I will say this is like just like a title thing. I really want to like Ronan more than I do. Like I love that title, and that song is just like not one that clicks with me, but
oh man, I love Ronan, but it's not going to be something I ever listen to on purpose because it is too sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, I kind of want to echo what we said about Speak Now, Taylor's version, where I really feel like this one took a really good album and added a bunch of really good songs to it. Like even excluding All Too Well 10-minute version, there are so many good songs that were added onto this one. And again, I think that that's part of like the charm. And I think that might be why I feel like there was like a bigger boom for like the Taylor's versions after this came out. Is like so many of those other songs are bangers in a way that IMO Fearless Taylor's version did not do.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. We're going into our top 2. Chat, how are we doing today? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying this? Really loving the people in chat. Deanna, I was not judging you. I was just making an observation about the amount of music that we listen to. And so Deanna does say the cool thing about the re-records is I tend to rediscover a song that you weren't into the first time. Then you love it more the next. Sneaky says, stop stalling. You got me. This album is a cat. Let's get into Midnight's Taylor version. The most recent new album? Non-Taylor's version album. I don't know how to like classify these. What'd you think about Midnight's?
Okay, so here's the funny thing is that the first time I listened to Midnight's, you may remember I said it was a fairly meh album for me. It's like it's good to like have on in the background, but there's not really anything that like stands out to me on it. And then I think it was largely her releasing the 3 a.m. version, which is why I'm sad that we're not including that in our stuff. But yeah, apparently Midnight's is now one of my favorite albums. So that's just a thing now.
Yeah. I remember that was something that when we first talked about, we really disagreed on because I loved Midnight's. And I love the 3 a.m. version. I like, this is what I referenced at the top. Paris, I think, is my favorite Taylor Swift song. I love the lyrics of that song. I love like the idea about like, oh, I was somewhere else. Like why don't I know about this thing? Because I was busy doing my own thing. And I feel like it kind of hits that like that revenge thing that I love about Taylor Swift songs, but it's also like snarky and upbeat, and it's not like I'm gonna murder you revenge. It's like petty social like revenge, and I love that so much. Um, and yeah, there's so many songs on this that like I really like. Bejeweled and Mastermind especially are two of my tops, or my two tens that I gave on this album. Um, but there's so many things. Oh, I put a note. I left a note for Labyrinth because I want to bring out. I don't know what it is about this song, but man, the music in this song tickles my brain in the right way. Like I don't know, like I don't know what it is, but just like I have no clue why she makes the decisions that she makes musically for this song, but I love it. Uh, yeah, there's so much on this that I really like. Um, and oh, it's such a good album. And even the songs here that I have like ranked kind of low, I think probably would be some of my favorite songs on a different album. Like Snow on the Beach, like naming one of them that like I gave a 7. I have my lowest on this album is 3 sevens. Um, and like Snow on the Beach is like one that like I honestly think would have been a 10 if it was on like Folklore or Evermore. Like it's just like in the context of all of these other songs that I absolutely love, it just kind of falls down.
I was a little bit harder on Midnights than you were,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
Snow on the Beach is also my least favorite. But I love Sweet Nothing. It's so cute. Get a little cheesy and say it reminds me of my husband.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, Mastermind also so good.
Mm-hmm.
And Karma grew on me.
Mm-hmm. I really like Karma. When we went to the Eras tour, one of my friend had a Karma is a Cat shirt, and so
Yes.
uh, something interesting mathematically happened here, because so we didn't include the 3 a.m. edition in the rankings, but like I said, we still went through and ranked them. And interestingly, 3 a.m. edition brings up your ranking for this album, but brings mine down.
Interesting.
And so that was something that like I was not expecting as I went through. Now, granted, it brings mine down to like still like my top rate, like one of the top rated albums that I have, but like um, it and so I thought that that was just like interesting that like again there are like a lot of songs that I really like on the 3 a.m. edition, but I have 1 6 and 1 7, and that brings down the average just because of how high I have the rest of this album.
Yeah. My lowest in the 3 a.m. songs is a 7, whereas Snow on the Beach is a 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I also want to say, in classic us fashion, you have Bigger Than the Whole Sky as a 10, and it's my lowest ranked 3 a.m. version song.
I was gonna say, I'm like, this is going to perfectly show our Enneagrams with like me, the 4, being like, yes, all the sad songs, perfect 10. And Cameron being like, no,
Yeah. I'm over
none of
here
that.
like rocking out to Paris, High Infidelity, and Glitch. Like,
I mean, which I also ranked pretty high.
yeah.
But yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, my favorite Taylor Swift song of all time is in the 3 a.m. version, and that is Would've, Could've, Should've.
mm-hmm. Very good one.
Again, hating on John Mayer.
And then
Both 10s.
both 10s. And then I have to ask, where are my Starbucks lovers at? Because our number 1 ranked album is Taylor Swift 1989. And this was, interestingly for me, I would say this is my favorite Taylor Swift album, but it was not my highest ranked, which I thought was very interesting. I think some of that might be like when I like came into this, like 1989 hit like at a very specific time in my life. It was the first like Taylor Swift release after I had moved to Connecticut. So like in like the most cheesy way, like Welcome to New York like hits for me because like I'm literally in New England. Like I'm 2 hours away from New York. Like again, in like maximum cheesy way, I have walked around New York listening to Welcome to New York. Um yeah, and so like I said, this is like really what I would consider one of my favorite albums, with Shake It Off, Bad Blood, and Blank Space and Clean being my top songs on this one. And I want to call out one of these. And now I can't remember what it was. There's one of these. Oh, Style. Style is another one of those songs that I could not tell you the song from the title, but I love the song so much. And I just like, for some reason, could not get in my head what that song is. Like, I don't understand why. So it's like a really popular one. And I just like can't like, I like even right now, knowing I would make this point when we got to this album, I cannot recall what Style is. I listened to it less than an hour before we started. And I don't know why. I just can't remember what this is.
That is so funny to me. Especially because it's like such a popular one.
It's so good. Like, it's not a knock against the song. I just like can't like for the life of me recall. Like
Oh,
what about you?
Yeah. When this album came out, I listened to nothing but Blank Space for like 2 or 3 weeks straight. Like, I love that one. Also, Wildest Dreams.
Which Deanna shouts out as well.
Yes. So good.
Which I have as an 8 in mine, which is not enough to break like into the top 6 or something like that. There's so many songs that I have so high for this album.
And then I also love Welcome to New York and Style.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it's a great song.
It is.
And so those are our rankings. To go through the full list again, we're going to do some talks. We're going to kind of talk through some of the stuff. I want to share our actual rankings for the albums and talk through in that context as well. But before we get into that, going through in our lowest to highest. Oh, I stopped saying the numbers along the way. I'll say those as we go through here. Taylor Swift, we gave a 6.53. Fearless TV was a 6.85. Evermore was a 6.89. Reputation was an even 7. Fearless was a 7.04. Speak Now, 7.64 or 7.46. Lover, 7.56. Folklore, 7.63. Speak Now, Taylor's Version, 7.76. Red, 8.03. Red, Taylor's Version, 8.13. Midnight's, 8.20. And then 1989, 8.36. So I want to hit you with some interesting things that I noticed, like looking through this data. And so Folklore and Red, Taylor's Version, have the most discrepancy in our scores of any of the albums, which is crazy because like Red, Taylor's Version is my number 4 in my albums, but it's your number 1. And so that like says something about like the discrepancy versus Folklore that I have significantly lower than you do on the charts. And so I thought that was very interesting. And I do think it's interesting there. Just this doesn't mean anything. But like, I think it's interesting that for both of those, you ranked them higher than I did. And I'm just like significantly lower than you are. Um, and then, what do you think of that before we do the opposite?
Oh, it is interesting. What does it mean?
Yeah, what does it? I don't know what anything means, but here we are. Um, Next, 1989 and Reputation were our closest albums. Reputation, we referenced earlier, we both gave a 7 to. And then 1989, we had a 0.13 difference. I guess I should say the difference for Folklore and Red. Folklore, we had a 1.31 difference between us. And then Red, we had a 0.76. So I feel like in general, we had about the same rankings. Like that's not that big of a discrepancy other than Folklore. There's a whole lot that are like 6 or below difference between how we ranked them. And so, and the difference in if you average our rankings of all of the albums, we only had a difference of 0.24. Like if you take all of the scores and average them together. So, okay. So let's get into our actual rankings for the albums. And so, something I want to call out here, if you want to like talk through the ones that you picked, I'll go through mine as well. But something I do want to call out is that while the numbers are pretty different, we shared 4 out of the 5 of our top albums and 4 out of the 5 of our bottom albums. With you having Reputation in your bottom 5 and me having Folklore. That's the difference. And then in our top, you have Folklore, and I have Speak Now, Taylor's version. But other than that, the 4 out of the 5 on the top and bottom are the same. But yeah, looking at this, what'd you learn about yourself, about Taylor Swift? Kind of taking this as like a time where we have these numbers to go and reflect a little bit on the albums.
I don't know. Like I was saying at the beginning of the episode, I thought 1989 was my favorite album. And now I'm like, hold on a second. Like apparently I'm a Red girl. So say the numbers.
That was something interesting too that I noticed is that 1989 is our combined number 1, but it was not either of our individual number 1s, with it being my number 2 just behind Midnight's and your number 3 behind Red. So like, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. Although I think, it'd be hard because I feel like I factor in the deluxe versions, even though we didn't hear. But I think even so, Red probably still has the most perfect 10s compared to any other album.
It's funny you say that. If you look at the number of 10s that we gave, I gave out 9 10s, whereas Shanine gave out 10. Shanine has 5 songs from Red that she gave a perfect 10 to. Whereas I have three on Red Taylor's version, and I Knew You Were Trouble is the only song that I gave a 10 to twice. So that tells you again how much I love that song. That like it is both times the only song that I ranked a 10. And then interestingly enough, All Too Well 10-minute version is the only song we both gave a 10 to. Also with the numbers, I gave out 5 four or five scores that were a 6 point something to your two. And then I gave out two 8 point somethings compared to your four. So, again, I don't know what that means, but it's interesting. Uh, and so, and then something else that I thought was interesting with this is we both gave um, Reputation a 7. It is your third from the bottom, and it is my sixth from the bottom. Which I think is interesting, just like how that, like, as a touch point where we both agreed, it's interesting how that landed in pretty like different places. That being said, like Fearless and Folklore for me are like 6.9 somethings. And so like I guess in Fearless Taylor's version for you is a 6.9 something. So like depends on how we round, but like I thought that was an interesting thing. Um, any other number observations, thoughts for you? Anything land? You already mentioned being a red girl, but anything land much higher or lower than you had expected?
No, I think I'm still a little surprised that Fearless Taylor's version was like lower than Fearless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I
And
was.
I
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was especially surprised that that happened to both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought it because like I had gone through and I had mine in for that before you had done yours, and I'm like, oh, this is just going to be like a weird thing, like a weird anomaly for us to talk about. And then the same thing happened when you went through and put your scores in, and so uh,
Yeah. I think other than that, I thought that I liked Evermore more than I apparently do.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that was. Um, Sorry, I'm asking a clarifying question in chat. Um, yeah, I was kind of surprised, like mathematically, to look at where Folklore and Evermore landed for me. Um, and kind of as I said as we went through, like there are a couple songs on there I really like, but there's like nothing really to bump up the average for those, and it was just like weird looking at like putting a number to how I felt. Like I think I probably could have told you that, but like it just is like it's weird to actually like go and put a number with both of those. Like I had not expected Evermore to be my lowest ranked album. Granted, it's by zero point zero 0.01, but like I had not expected that to be the case going into it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back um, to the notes. You had added a couple other questions for us here in this section of the notes. What are you? You want to take us into those?
Yeah. Um, who is your favorite featuring artist that we have seen on any of Taylor's albums?
Um, this kind of ties in with one of the other questions, but like I feel like I have to say Fallout Boy. Um, like I don't necessarily like um feel like that's what I would expect to say. And like that I guess that's even like what's the difference there between like a song that I really like that they are on versus a song that I feel like really features that person really well. But um yeah, I guess I have to say Fallout Boy.
No, I mean, I think that's a great answer. I totally agree. His voice is like so unique to what we've seen Taylor sing with before, and they sound so good together. I already said Gary Lightbody from Snow Patrol. Love it. And Bonnie Bear. Love them. I loved both of those artists before. So having them feature with Taylor Swift, super exciting.
Uh, I wanted to look at how we ranked this before I said something. Okay, we are going to disagree here. I will tell you my most favorite is definitely not Bon Iver. Of like, I just do not like that song. I do not like Exiles, and again, I don't know if it's like it's not their voice I don't like. Just like that song is not one that like really connects with me, and so I'm just like, okay, I guess you're here for this.
I know. It's not your style. And Bonnie
Yeah,
Bear is very much that style of
yeah,
music as well. So
yeah. Uh, I will say, I mean, you very accurately judged me earlier of like going through this. I did learn for myself that like I don't listen to music to feel things. I listen to music like for a beat and for like lyrics and for like the fun side of it. Cause like if a song was slower tempo, it took a lot more for that to get a higher score for me than a song that was quicker. Because a song that was quicker, I'm more likely to just have on while I'm doing something. Uh, but yeah, I feel like that's very much like my issue with like Exile. So
what is your favorite vault track or like
uh,
top
yeah,
3?
yeah. So it's Electric Touch, obviously, as like I've referenced throughout this, um, and then ranking wise, it's like I bet you think about me the if not counting All Too Well 10-minute version. I don't know if that technically counts as a from the vault track, but like not counting that one. Um, I bet you think about me for the very first night when Emma falls in love and I can see you. Those 4 I gave a 9 to. Um, and so like spitballing, but between those, I would say number 1 is Electric Touch. I bet you think about me, and when Emma falls in love. Like just kind of spitballing, I would say those 3.
Looking, I think I actually really like Mr. Perfectly Fine. Um, Also, I bet you think about me and Electric Touch and I Can See You are like
Mm-hmm.
my top 4.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, I'm just like noticing something. Okay, my lowest rated from the vault tracks on Red and Speak Now is a 7. Oh no, a 6 with Ronin. I guess is the lowest from the vault track I have. From those 2. But then my highest on Fearless is a 7.5 with Mr. Perfectly Fine. And so again, I just think that that's interesting. Going not to like keep lumping it onto Fearless Taylor's version, but like I feel like that's interesting. Where like the bottom songs on the other from the vaults are like above pretty much the Fearless versions. So
Yeah, I feel like it's different for me. The vault songs, I have something on each album that's like really, really low and something on each album that's like
mm-hmm.
really, really high. As a whole, Fearless vault songs are lower ranked than the other ones though.
In chat, Sneaky says he thinks this speaks to how each song like stands out individually, but like looking at like the whole album, it's so much interesting because you get like a different take on it. Like it like changes how you view the songs within those albums, and I definitely think that that's like there's a lot of that, especially for me on like the higher ranked albums. Like, yeah, like I was a reference like Snow on the Beach, like probably would be one of my favorite albums or songs on a different album, but like in the context of Midnights, it's like my lowest ranked song, or not by itself, but there's a couple sevens, but.
All right. What are your Taylor Swift predictions?
I mean, I literally don't care about anything until we get 1989 Taylor's version. Like I said, while like Midnights was ranked as my like number one, like 1989 is like my album. And I'm so excited about that, like especially coming off of Red and Speak Nows from the Vaults. Like I'm so excited to hear what those could be. I'm excited to hear Wonderland redone. Like that's a song that I really enjoy. That's in like the deluxe tracks for that one. Like I'm really excited to kind of see how that shakes out as we get 1989, and I'm hoping that that one is next based on all the conspiracy theories that are floating around.
I mean, it's got to be it, right?
I mean, it's very prominent in the I Can See You video. So,
as a very like beginner Swiftie when it comes to sussing out Easter eggs, that one was pretty in your face. I'd be sad if it wasn't 1989 Taylor's version next.
Yeah. As like a follow up to this, Deanna and I were talking about this. Do you think so? We have three from the vaults left: 1989, Reputation, and Debut. Do you think, assuming we get 1989 next, since that's kind of where the signs point, do you think we get Debut at the end as the last Taylor's version, or do you think we get Reputation as the last Taylor's version?
I was literally thinking about this today, like as I was getting ready. I think it would make sense for her to do Debut last, like the finishing where we started, kind of.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at as well. Deanna brought up a really good point, but like that, like doing Reputation last would be her like regaining her reputation as the person who owns her music. And like that fits like pretty well into the vibe. And like you can kind of make that same thought for Debut of it's her debuting all of her own music that she now owns. Like also kind of works there. But
yep.
As long as it's not 1989. Like I just don't want to wait more. Like
need it now.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I don't buy into the like Taylor Swift is going to drop all of her Taylor's versions at once, but if we could get a like single now of Shake It Off from the vault or like from like the 1989 Taylor's version, I would be so hyped to see that. And I would love to see her take on a music video for that song again. I don't think she would, but I would love to see that happen.
See, and Shake It Off is one of like my lowest ranked songs from that album.
See, it's my 10 on that album. Like,
I think it suffered from the overplaying for me, I think.
That definitely makes
sense.
I
It's
think
not sad enough.
Yeah, it is not sad enough. See, and it's so happy and upbeat. That's why I like it. It hits my Enneagram 3 just right. I think one of the things that like saves me in that is that I typically don't listen to music unless I'm with other people. Like if I'm in the car by myself, I'm listening to podcasts. Like if I'm home, I'm like watching YouTube, like or like Twitch or something like that. I don't really listen to music much by myself I pretty much exclusively listen to it with other people, which means that like I don't listen to the radio a lot. And like if I'm doing Spotify, I'm just listening to the songs that I want to listen to. So like I don't really have as much of an issue with like if a song comes on and it happens to be every time I'm listening to the radio, that's like maybe once every 3 days that Deanna and I drive somewhere together. Like, and so like it just it doesn't come up as much, and that kind of saves me from like the overplay thing.
I guess to wrap up my questions, what era are you in?
Oh, I mean, I think this is an interesting one for me because I feel like I have to say Midnight's era, because if I was going to take like I'm thinking of it in like releases, like Red Taylor's version, Midnight's Speak Now, like that set of albums means a whole lot more to me um, than Red 1989 Reputation. Specifically because of Reputation. Like that is a lower one for me, but like I feel like mathematically that's where I have to be, like those three. Especially with Midnight's in 1989 being my top two. Although I guess I could say just Red 1989, but like, you know. What about you?
I think I'm also in my Midnight's era. Kind of vibing, low key, working through all the things that keep me up at night.
Scream singing your way around the house.
Yes.
Okay. Last question before we wrap the cast and go to post-show chat. This is what Deanna had posted earlier. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for hanging out with us. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know the answer to any of the questions that we've had, or especially the answer to this one. If you could only keep 3 of the current albums, what would they be? And so we can even take this in the direction of like, you have 3 albums to show somebody that's like, this is Taylor Swift. What 3 are you picking? And is it your 3 highest ranked? Because I don't think mine are.
I have to go back and look at what my highest.
I say that mine are probably my. No, they're not. Okay. So I'll say for me, I do think it's Midnight, specifically 3 a.m. edition. It's Red, Taylor's version, and then either Speak Now, Taylor's version, or 1989. And the reason that like I bumped 1989 there is that it does have some similar vibes to me to Midnight. So like if I'm going to introduce somebody to one of those sides, like Midnight's is the one that I would introduce them to. Whereas like I feel like Red has a lot of that classic Taylor. So it's my number 1, my number 4, and then either my 2 or 3. So
yeah, it's not my top 3 either, and not just because Red is my top 2.
Top 1 and 2, because you're just a Red girl.
I will say Red Taylor's version, 1989, and Midnight's. I think Midnight's bumps out Folklore just because it's, I don't know, more broadly appealing. I think.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a very specific person for me to recommend like Folklore as one of like the modern albums. Like I do think changing this question, and maybe this is back a little bit more to like what Deanna was intending. If you destroy every other album and you are left with 3 of them, like while while Folklore is like my 5th from the bottom, I do think there's more of an argument for keeping that as like a glimpse into this other like version and other style of her music. Like and then like if we're thinking of it in that sense, I think my answers would be Midnight's, Red, Taylor version, and Folklore. Like again, even though I don't think I would recommend Folklore in a vacuum, I do think that there's something cool, and I respect Taylor a lot for trying radically different style there. Like her transition from country to like full on pop rock, whatever, is not the most subtle thing. Like by the time that you're getting to like Speak Now, it's like, sure, technically country, but like barely. And I feel like hitting Midnights is a more rock vibe, Red as like Red Taylor's version at like the final vestige of country, and then Folklore as folk, I think are such like radically different things that it becomes more of an argument there.
I agree with that.
You heard it here, folks. We're going to destroy every Taylor Swift album except for those 3, and then that's all you can listen to. But we didn't actually talk about this as we go. I said last question, and then I'm bringing us back in with another one. What do you think of her doing the re-releases and the Taylor's versions? Like, we just kind of skimmed over what that meant and why that was going on as we were doing the rankings. I should have asked this, I guess, when we got to Fearless, since that was like the first one that we hit. But what do you think of that?
I mean, I think her reasoning for it is fantastic. As someone who also likes to create art, it is ridiculous that she was denied the opportunity to own her own creations, and reclaiming that is 100% the right thing for her to be doing. Like, go Taylor.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting hearing some of those like early like teen, very young adult Taylor songs being sung now.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm very interested to see what like our song is gonna sound like for debut Taylor's version, like or even like Teardrops on My Guitar. I'm very interested to what that's gonna sound like in a more modern take on it. But and then from me, the most medium take. I completely agree with everything Janine said. I think it's ridiculous that she did not get the right of first refusal when it came to buying her masters for those songs. I think it is ridiculous that she has to do this. Air quotes has to. But like, I think it's ridiculous that like she was not able to just buy her own songs. And like, I get like contractually that like contracts suck, but like that like other people of course do a lot of work, and it's like that's why their label owns the songs. But the fact that she's at the point where she could buy all those masters and they wouldn't allow her really like upsets me. And I like what she's doing here as the like representation for what artists should be trying to do with their music. That like, it's not saying, hey, it's fair that I don't own my own stuff that I wrote. She's saying, okay, well, you won't let me own it. I'll just redo it and devalue my own stuff. And then either you'll sell it to me or I'll sell a whole bunch of albums and make more money. Okay. Like I honestly feel like right now, if she was to be able to buy back all the old albums, we'd still get Taylor's versions for them. like I feel at this point she showed that it's like financially worth it for her to just release a couple of re-releases every year, and like she does such a good job. Like it's not just the same album again. Like she's proved that it's worth it and that it's new content. Um, and I love it for her. It reminds me a lot of when she went at Spotify for the amount of music or amount of money that they were paying streamers per song. And like it was very easy to be like, oh, this is just one of the richest artists going after Spotify. But like it's also her fighting for every artist on the platform and like using her weight as a like superstar to like drive change. And I kind of hope that we get to see some of that because of the Taylor's versions. Like we may never publicly know that, but like I hope that we get to see better contracts for artists. I hope we get to see stuff like that, and we get to see artists actually like make more of the money that they put effort in, even if it's not like specifically the singer, but like the band, like the actual producers, things like that, versus just the record label that's getting this money. Deanna in chat says this also shows that her old stuff is still relevant. Yeah. And I think that's another reason that we, no matter what, would still be getting these three Taylor's versions, even if she bought them back. I think we would still get 1989, Reputation, and Debut TVs. In chat, Gianna asks if we have any fan theories, but we'll get to that in the post-show chat. Announcement before we wrap. July 27th is going to be our book club for this month. We are doing Classic Geek Summer, and we're reading The Princess Bride. And so I got it from my local library. Shout out to them. And so, but yeah, we'll be doing that at the end of the month. And then we are First Geek 411. You can find us on our social media. You can also join our Discord server if you would like to chat with us between shows. You can find us on our email, 1stgeek411, if you'd like to shoot us something there. You can also find us on Redbubble. You can watch live on Twitch, 6:45 Mountain Time, and find our videos over on YouTube. And then you can also find us on our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
I'm the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram.
And it's been a great week.
Listen to some Taylor Swift.
Hate is gonna hate.